I heard it's
Uh,
It
oh,
says we're live up there.
says we are live.
what?
Come on,
Live.
y'all, it's time.
Come on, come on, let's go, let's go, let's do it.
Rolling on the road
With the doc,
rolling on the road
with Dave,
rolling on the road
with the doc.
100 shades of diversibility with Dave and Dr. Bertie.
All right, that was cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Dave, today we kind of have a star.
No.
Yeah,
Well,
we
don't mind me
got-
while I eat my lunch.
What at 5 o'clock?
Enjoy.
You know, I prefer sugar. Anyways,
Let's see. We do have a celebrity today. And,
Rico, welcome.
Thank
you
you.
go.
Thank you for having me.
Well,
No, get that.
All right, it's listed as one of the top tourist destinations in South Florida. It's the
my
Wynwood
girl.
Art District. It became a hot spot with restaurants and tourists. It was simply a place where artists created. And well, now there's a new documentary highlighting one of the pioneering street artists in the area who helped to transform the location. It's a place bursting with color and culture. Wynwood has become a popular destination in South Florida, filled with condos and cool boutiques. But before it was like this, it was this, a place for artists to share their work. In the mid-2000s, Wynwood's abandoned buildings were transformed into canvases.
At that particular time, it was still kind of a Wild West thing to kind of do, to just write on these walls. And he was writing messages on all of these walls.
It was an exciting time for the art community, which sparked a wave of prominent New York graffiti artists to migrate to Miami. Local filmmaker Rico started documenting one of those artists, Scott Patterson, also known by the street name Nobody.
He was more of this larger than life figure that kind of had not been seen before in Wynwood. He was loud. For graffiti artists, you kind of want to be under the radar, but he was really loud, he was boisterous, and he was out there, and he wanted people to know this was my art and this is what I'm doing.
He spent time walking the streets of Wynwood, always seen wearing a black bandana, once known as the unofficial mayor of Wynwood. He soon became known for tagging the phrase, "Art is my weapon." His work so popular, he began traveling for art shows, back to New York and also to Europe. But in 2016, he died suddenly. James was left with footage and memories of an artist gone too soon.
It's like he was like a superhero, and it gave him the courage to open his, be a big mouth, because he was, compared to these wimpy whoever's, the chihuahuas that were walking around, he was already a BMOC, a big man on campus.
It took a few years, but James was able to pay tribute to Patterson's story in a way that honors him and the legacy he created in the Wynwood Art District.
There's so many artists out there that are on the street, that are doing street murals, that are doing graffiti. You don't know what their life is. You don't know what they're about. You don't know what drives them. You don't know what pushes them. And this particular story tells the stories of all those artists that aren't particularly super well known, but still have art all over the world. And Nobody was one of those guys.
Yeah, it's not just Black history, it's Miami history, right? I've seen the documentary, and I got to tell you, it's pretty cool. It's really neat to see the story of Wynwood and how it's evolved over time. Now, the screening will be taking place at Panther Coffee, that's located in Wynwood. Of course, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's happening this Saturday at 6 p.m. You can go to Panther Coffee's Facebook page to get information about tickets.
Cool story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Well,
wow.
I would have to say, let me see, stop sharing. There we go. All right, we got to turn the music up. Can you guys hear the music?
What's that?
Okay. I think that it's more than cool. I got an opportunity to screen it in Detroit, and Ooh, wait a minute. Where's my box of tissue? Okay, I'm gonna get my box
Well,
of tissue. I got my box of tissue. The way you delve into his life, you show it in its entirety in such a short amount of time. It's only like maybe an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 30 minutes. But okay. The
yeah,
way he
when did you release the documentary?
Well, it still hasn't been released yet. I'm showing it in select cities as marketing promotions for the film. So when I was in Detroit, I was happy to show it at the Namdi Gallery. And since then, I just got back from actually Newark, New Jersey, and showing at the Newark Museum of Art. And we also showed in East Orange, New Jersey, where the artist is from. That's his hometown, at the Cicely Tyson Performing Arts Center. And we were lucky. Well, we were fortunate that the mayor gave us an actual proclamation for his contribution to art and the contribution of the movie to documenting his story. So we're very honored to have that proclamation, and we're hoping to do a couple more cities. Probably looking to do LA, looking to do Chicago, and a couple more cities to spread the word about the movie before it streams in the new year.
We want to say hello to Mary Rayford for tuning in on today. Thank you so much, Mary. Dave, I told you we had a celebrity today. I'm just saying.
You know, and I mean, my broken heart, because believe it or not, and it might come as a surprise, I know some graffiti artists, and it was just like, oh man, they've got to get connected to nobody, and then he up and died. But at least to get connected to the documentary, and
Right.
we're going to talk about a screening here in Grand Rapids when we get off the air.
Oh, I'd love to.
Because we have a partner organization called Mosaic Film Experience,
Okay.
which is focused on young storytellers and how to instigate people to tell stories, and different lenses, and especially from an African-American lens, which
Right.
I'm not telling the two of you something you already don't know. In America, we choose not to pick up that lens often enough, and we don't invest in that lens as a collective as much as we should. But
Absolutely.
by golly, I can't wait to see this, because I love that. I mean, I'd call it guerrilla art, you know, street art, speaking truth. And so wow, Rico.
Yeah.
I don't know what to ask first. Tell us about you, or you tell us about you before we talk about nobody.
Well, my name is Rico James. I actually live in Miami, Florida. I've been here for about 20 years, but I'm actually from the DC area. Then moved to New York in '97.
I just have to tell folks, that's not one of those fancy YouTube backgrounds behind Rico. That's sunshine and palm trees for real. Dang it, rub it in. It's like,
yeah, man. I mean, to be honest with you, the weather's really just started to break where it's like this is the time to be in Miami, because it's been a little hot and humid, but now the humidity's gone. This is the time to be in Miami. So this is why I actually left New York to come to Miami, because of this weather. But when I was living in New York, I used to come here often. I was working in a lot of different record labels, and then I was a talent executive at BET. And I booked a lot of talent for the different shows on BET at the time. And I really wasn't using my skills that I learned at Howard University. I was radio and television film major. And when I was at BET, I really wasn't using my technical skills. I was booking artists. I knew the artist, I knew the shows, I knew the culture, but I still wanted to produce shows. So there came a time when we were actually traveling, and they didn't have a budget for a producer and a talent executive. And I told them my background. I said, well, listen, I can shoot and I can, book the talent as well. So they were like, sure, go ahead. And that kind of started my producing skills at BET. And then when I left BET and came to Miami, just by chance, I let them know I'm here in Miami now. And at that particular time in '03, everybody was coming to Miami to shoot different music videos. So they were like, this is perfect. You already live down there. You know what we need to do. So I shot a lot of different different shows here in Miami, and actually the people in Miami, I was the BET guy. Even though I was shooting freelance, they saw me and knew me as the BET guy. And then from there, I progressed. I think it's 07, 08 is kind of when the market crashed for everything. So people weren't shooting the money stopped flowing, basically, and so music videos were stopped shooting. And I there was a television show called Burn Notice that was shooting down here in Miami about an ex-CIA operative who now lives in Miami. A burn notice is something that happens when you're kind of disavowed and the government doesn't notice you anymore or recognize you as an agent. So I saw it on television. I saw that they were shooting in Miami. I was like, man, I want to work on that show. And just by chance, someone I knew was actually working on the show and put me in touch with the executive producer. And we got on great, and he asked me to be on the show and help him work the show. And so he was on the show for one season, and then he left. And actually, the year after that, the actor Jeffrey Donovan asked me to be his personal assistant. So I worked on that show for about 4 years, and then after that, I shot different things for different people, but I've always wanted to shoot my own project. And when I met Nobody, it didn't start off as a documentary. It started off as a project that he became a little more reclusive. He didn't want to go out and show his work. He didn't want to be out on the streets anymore. He said, I just want to work. So I said, well, let me just, and he actually moved his studio by my house. So that's how I used to see him more. And so I used to go to the studio and hang out, and he was coming up with an incredible body of work. And I said, well, when are you going to show? When are you going to let people see this? He said, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to work. I said, well, let me shoot you. And then, artists go up and down. I said, well, let me shoot the process. And I don't think he thought I was serious, but I kept showing up. And it started out as me just shooting the process of that body of work. And then unfortunately in 2016, he took his life. I put the project down for a little bit. Actually, there was no project. He was gone, so there was no project. And then I just started thinking that, you know what, this is a very interesting story. Let me continue on. And I just picked up my camera one day and started shooting one person. I said, let me just shoot one person. I'll shoot one interview and see how that goes. And that went great. And then she started saying, oh, you need to shoot this person. And then that person would, so it just snowballed into something bigger. And I kind of saw it that this could be a great story about an artist. And to your point, this is not, it's not a story that's so unique, but it's a story that's not told often, especially about Black artists. You ask people about a Black street artist and they'll all day say Basquiat. There's so many other artists out there. So I kind of wanted to give life to his story and show people out there that that his work was important. And a lot of people throughout the world have his artwork, because in Miami, people used to come from all over the world, and he used to gift people pieces of artwork. And they would go home and think, this was a nice guy, but I want people to realize that they have really important pieces of work all around the world.
At what point did you decide, you said you just started interviewing other artists that knew him. At what point did you decide to add his daughter in?
Oh, that came much, much later. I'd met her at they had a memorial for him down in Miami. And I just wanted to introduce myself and I said, my name is Rico. I've been working with your father, shooting different things. And she said, oh, okay. And, we kept in contact. And then maybe like a month later, I called her again. And she said, well, my father told me that somebody was shooting a documentary or something on him, but I just thought he was lying. So when you introduced yourself, I knew exactly who you were. So I was like, I was kind of relieved, because I didn't want the family to think I was just Leach that was trying to just come up on his death and try to shoot this project. I'd actually been shooting it before he passed away. And so we talked throughout the years, and finally I said, I need to shoot you. She agreed to it. So that's, I think probably, this project all in all, for me shooting from 2015 until probably completing it 2021. I didn't shoot her until 2020. So I'd been working on it all that time, and then I needed a family member to kind of fill in the gaps of his early life. His sister was supposed to do it, but she, for some reason, we scheduled it. I'd flown to New York. I'd done a couple other artists that were in New York, and his sister, I guess she just didn't show up. But I needed that other perspective from a family member to kind of fill in those early years, and that those family stories.
Yeah, get a good frame for his art and who he was as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, I've watched a lot of documentaries on artists, and one thing that they do is they focus on the artist, which of course is a documentary about the artist, but they never show how it impacts the family, especially somebody who's so passionate and immersed in an art like this. People don't realize that it has its effect on family members and friends, and they kind of don't. You kind of don't get that lens often. So I wanted to make sure that it was. And again, some people think he's this great artist, but family members might have a different perspective. There's always a different side of the story.
Well, I guess without telling the whole thing, for those who haven't really seen it, so I guess I'm, speaking about it from a different perspective, is the resentment that his daughter had, from him doing this. And the other thing, Dave, he suffered from depression.
Yeah.
I think a lot of artists do. And I think that anybody who's just highly intelligent, that's just a lot to carry around in your brain housing all the time. All that intellect and talent. You got to figure out, what to do with it. But anyway, that's just my perspective.
As a quick on that tangent, it's like, I wonder if somebody's done the study that it's like, I have all this to express and I just can't. And yeah, anyways, and then there's bad disability metaphors. Anyways.
Well, to your point too, like people, especially graffiti artists, street artists, writers, it's an impulse. People think that, they're doing this mess, they just want attention, but it's an impulse to get what's inside of you out. It's to get that out there, to get that message, to get their name, to do whatever it is. It's an impulse. It's not something that, especially in there is a distinction, and people will tell you this, between graffiti writers, street artists, and writers. That's a whole different documentary. But I would consider nobody more of a street artist. And to get his message out to the masses, it's easier for you to do it on a wall as opposed to a gallery where people might not see it, people might not have access to it, and it's free. You don't have to pay for it. It's right there on those particular walls. And that neighborhood that he was living in, Wynwood, was that neighborhood. It was that artist neighborhood where people can write on the walls and get their messages out. It's a totally different neighborhood now. There's still art there. But it's not as primal as most.
I mean, that's what happens is like. Yeah. Is it like the primal, that these messages that just come from the reality and the pain, and then the evil of gentrification comes and the rawness, the primal disappears.
Right. Well, to be honest with you, that's it. Those plans are always in the works. The artists and the people are kind of like the guinea pigs for the neighborhood. They're like, okay, you guys make this neighborhood cool. We have, any developer, especially of a neighborhood, has a plan that's 10, 15 years out. Right. So now the plan of Wynwood is just coming into fruition right now. But the plan was always there. The gentleman who started that area also started Soho and South Beach. His name is Tony Goldman. So when he came to that particular area, that area of Miami was known as it was kind of the Puerto Rican area, and those warehouses were used as developing uniforms for different things, school uniforms, maid uniforms, whatever it was. Then, of course, China came into play. All of the work goes away, factories close down, the neighborhood crumbles around it, which is a typical story. Somebody comes in, sees the potential for reuse, lets the artist go in there, makes it cool, and then that's what happens.
Right. We want to take a minute. It's 20 minutes after the hour. We want to say thank you so much for tuning into Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. And we have a celebrity in the house on today, Mr. Rico James, who is a filmmaker and independently produced Nobody Was Here, and the life of TMNK. It's the acronym for The Me Nobody Knew. So we got a chance to talk to Mr. Rico about who he is. We want to give a shout out to Vertaji, who's watching out of Detroit, Michigan, and Shana, who's watching from Bel Air, Maryland, and Doretha, the realtor of the century.
The best in the West.
She is watching.
Shout out to my people in Maryland. What's up?
Maryland.
And so
the side of the river you were on in DC?
Yeah, I'm Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm on that side.
Okay. Didn't know if you were Northern Virginia. You know,
yeah.
That DC people don't know.
The DMV, yeah.
And I want you guys on Fridays from 7 to 9 p.m. Go to Doretha Ordon's page, and she will be playing some grown folk music. I'm talking about some good 60s, 70s, 80s, a little 90s. And invite a friend, hang out. Last week, this past Friday, Tommy Allen hung out. Thank you, Tommy Allen. I had folks from Atlanta tuning in, and we all just kind of hung out and listened to some great music. But what I love about this, Nobody Was Here, and how he wanted to be such a recluse that having the name Nobody really made him somebody. The way he carried himself, always wanting to wear the dark sunglasses and have on the bandana around his face. I mean, he was already, hooked up for COVID. The rest of us just kind of caught up. No.
Right. Yeah, he was doing it early, right? So when people see that, I tell them, I'm like, hey, that's pre-COVID.
But what we do here is that we shine a light on the marked sectionality of disability, and where it fits into our communities. And here it is, someone who is suffering from depression. Very rarely do we get to see a story where they can express themselves in such a positive way, have such an impact. I mean, he traveled all over the country. Even for 1 minute, he was able to kind of run a business. And the fact that he had his young son with him out there on the streets, teaching him the art, and the time that they spent together was just really unheard of when you think about someone who's suffering from mental illness. Because like now, when we hear about someone suffering from mental illness, they're being gunned down, they're being attacked, they're being locked up, but you don't hear where they're able to express themselves through art.
Well, also as well, you have to, we have to make sure that we know that the face of mental illness is not the face of somebody who's just this crazed person all the time. It could be me or you looking very nice or well dressed, or people suffer from every types of background. And again, depression is one of those things that kind of, it can come up. You can have episodes, and then everybody's like, well, I don't understand that. They were perfectly fine yesterday. They were just perfectly fine. And now, but they don't understand that this is something that creeps up in you. It has its time, and people suffer with this in silence. You may not see somebody for a long time, and you're like, why is such and such, why don't they ever come out? How come I never see them? They may be at home dealing with what they have to deal with. You never know. And then they come back when they're able to deal with society, able to deal with the world. I remember in particular when I was in high school, there was this one gentleman, kid I went to school with, great kid, happy, super happy. The next day, totally different. mean, not even mean, just not communicative. Just and again, as a kid, I had no language for it. I didn't understand what it was. So now I understand that, there's some people who go and then the next day he'd be perfectly fine. So again, as a high school kid, a young kid, and something that was not talked about, I had no idea that he could possibly be depressed. I had no clue for it, no words for it. So the great thing about today is mental health is brought a little more onto the forefront, and people understand a little more that you can say, hey, right now I'm just not doing very well, so I'm gonna have to take a step back and deal with my mental health. That's something that's cool to say. As before, it was like you were just thought as this crazy person that just can't deal with society and there's something wrong with you and all this other stuff. But now people have that grace to say, hey, I need just some time, or even recognize now that, okay, that person might be going through something right now. Let me not press them. Let me see what I can do to provide for them, and just be someone who is there to support. As you know, that's what I love about today. We actually had a chance to show to high school students in New Jersey, and to them right now, it's regular to say that I'm suffering from mental health, or I need to deal with my mental health. It's no stigma on it for these kids now. So I love that about today's kids.
That is a good thing. Dave, one of the things that happens as you're watching the documentary, the outtakes with his daughter talking, she's coming from the perspective of the mental illness. So as he stated earlier, that everybody's all excited because this guy is this artist. And as a matter of fact, if you can look, you can Google it, where he went up, he climbed up and he added his signature to a LeBron James billboard. And they just thought, oh my gosh, that was just great. They wanted to find him and everything. But Brian said, hey, I like this because he used his head as an O, and he put the nobody, his signature. What is it? Nobody can stop you. I think that's what he put up there.
Yeah, nobody can stop me. Yeah.
And so just to hear his daughter's perspective that, yeah, while you guys were relishing over this great guy, I'm having to deal with all of his dark times, the down times, him not being a dad. And then when he is a dad, hey, you're out there, creating this art. So just living in about 3 or 4 different worlds.
Also, in that particular billboard too, and I want to state this, that when he did that billboard, it did have "Nobody Can Stop Me," kind of a play on words. That his name is Nobody, no one can stop him. But it also was LeBron James in Miami. They were winning, so it was kind of play on words. Nobody can stop him either. But also, what I don't really focus on, and I need to start focus, like there's in the corner, there's a thing that says R.I.P. Rifa. Now Rifa was, yeah, so Rifa was a kid that was a graffiti or street artist as well, who had gotten killed by some police officers when they were chasing him. They tased him. I think he had done a tag on a building, and the police chased him and tased him and killed him. And so nobody was really moved by that. So this was kind of a memorial to him as well. And people don't understand. His daughter actually said, like, why are you putting Rifa? She thought that it was like talking about marijuana, but that was that was the kid's street name, Rifa. And so when things like this in society happen, he was always there to document it, and he always wanted people to know. He wanted to visualize it and let everybody know. And what better way to let people know than to do something on the biggest billboard in front of the Miami Heat arena with the biggest basketball player in the world. So that was the impetus for doing that as well.
We have a comment from Doretha. She says, that's why we love what this show is doing, bringing people together no matter what, in a positive manner. Thank you, Doretha.
Thank you.
And we say hey to Pastor Leroy Tolbert, who is watching as well. When I read that, because at first when I said hashtag Rifa, and I was like, what? Did he
Yeah.
put that up too? And
Right.
to know that he was paying tribute that
Yeah.
way, I thought was excellent. I really did, because we always hear about the rivalry and not the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And I love that you show the camaraderie that there was amongst those artists. And hey, Dave, he would have done a wonderful job here for Art Prize. You know, we could just get him to do some of the.
Oh, I mean, just again, like I said, I mean, that art that at one level is so simple, but then so boom, you know, and just takes. I mean, the images were too fast, of course, on the news, the newscast, but just
You can
seeing.
see him. You can see them. If you Google TMNK Nobody, all of his work comes up. He was very well versed. He was very super smart, and he was
Are you
very
gonna do
well
it?
versed on technology. So very early, he was placing his artwork online because he said this is a way to reach people globally. So that was what was really great about, helpful in terms of me researching the movie, because he put so much stuff online early before people were really into the internet. So that helped quite a bit. So you can see a lot of his images online.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a YouTube page that's still up. His Instagram page is still up. So you can hear and see stuff from his own words.
Let's see. I think I have.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Can you see that? I think. Yeah, there's some pieces. Can I? No, it won't let me switch in between. But he's got some really, really nice pieces. He almost reminds you in some way of Paul Collins. He's a African American artist.
Yeah, so that's the great thing about, in particular, this documentary, because after it's over, that was the whole point. I didn't want his legacy and his artwork just to be there. Nobody knows about it. Excuse the pun, but I wanted everyone to see that this man still has artwork out there. You can see it and still enjoy it. We were actually in Newark. We actually had some pieces that his protege Malcolm brought out of storage that hadn't been seen in 10 years. So there's still artwork out there. So my goal is what I really wanted to do is kind of do installations at different museums around the world with the movie and the artwork, because once you see the movie, of course, it informs you a lot more about the artwork.
Yeah, and Paul's stuff is, at least the Paul that I have seen is more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is, this definitely instigates thought and gets you, that
definitely conversation starters.
Yeah, and it was interesting you popped that one video that popped up from USA Today. It's like, that billboard vandalized in LeBron's.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, it's vandalized. Anyways.
I bet somebody wishes they had it now. I wish I could find that piece, and I hope it's rolled up somewhere in a warehouse and somebody pulls it out, because that was such a big piece.
Right. So
I hope somebody out there has it.
Yeah, and it was. I was struck when you were talking about your own experience, Rico. In high school, and this kid who, is what we would consider on one day and off
Right.
the next, but
Exactly.
like really off. And when you said, he, like, you didn't have the words, but probably that kid didn't have the words, and then back to nobody didn't have the words. He had his art.
He did. He had his art, and I think his art for him, for a very, very long time, the art is what sustained him. But once you get to a certain level in your illness, you need professional help, and you know nobody was a certain age because I would talk to him about it. I would see that on and off. I would see it all the time. One day he'd be crying and just crushed in, and then the next day he'd be totally fine. And he would tell me he was going through. He told me, he was like, nothing works anymore. The drinking doesn't work. The smoking doesn't work. He was like, nothing. He loved the dance. He was like, the dance. He said nothing works anymore. So you can only put this off for so long. So you need someone who is a professional to help deal with it. And depression is treatable. It's treatable. It's different for different people. There's going to be different things. There's going to be maybe medication. There's going to be routines, but it's a lifestyle that a person needs to enact.
Oh, absolutely. A lifestyle of healing, a lifestyle of staying, a stick-to-itness.
Right.
This piece that he did, $60,000.
Yeah. That's actually that piece right there is Marilyn Monroe. That's a collaboration with another artist named Scott Marcy. They used to spend a lot of time together. So that's there's those Marilyn Monroes. I have, and he was selling prints of those. I have some prints, and I'm telling you, people out there, if they have this print, there was only a limited run of them. I think there was 100 of them. So if you have that, dust it off, frame it. I think that's probably the original piece.
This one, yeah, it's 60. Yeah, for 60.
And they actually did a piece like that on a wall in the area in Miami called the Design District, and it went very well with the area. Everyone thought that they were commissioned to do it, but one night they just came and just put it up in a prominent area in Miami. So it's kind of a famous little thing in Miami if you were here back then. So that's why they made prints of it and put it out there. So it's really famous in Miami, and in Miami at least. So
yeah. In Miami.
Yeah. But there's all those. That's why there's so many stories like that. These different pieces. Artists, graffiti artists all over the world. I can probably go somewhere else and see a piece. Go to Detroit or Jersey or Grand Rapids and see a piece, and I have my idea of it, but the local people there know what it is, know what it's about. It might be there for a little while. So there's stories like this all over the world. So that's why I wanted to get this documentary out, to actually tell the story of TMNK.
What are you thinking, Dave?
Again, I'm thinking this is an awesome story. It is, yeah, and as you said, Rico, it's somebody who, got to his end and unfortunately chose to end it and that can be, I'm just going to call it, the demons of mental health conditions. People, it's tough.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, one of the more famous cases recently was the dancer Twitch. That was Ellen DeGeneres DJ, who everyone thought that he was great and he was fine, and no one had any clue. And he checked into a motel and a hotel and killed himself. And no one had, maybe his wife, maybe some, but everyone on the outside thought he was just fine. He was great. He had this great job. He was making money. He had a family. He had a wife. Seemingly like on top of the world, and everyone thinks that out of the blue he just killed himself. But this is something, and that eats away at you. it chips away. It chips and chips and chips and chips and chips away. I don't know his particular situation. I don't know if he's gotten treatment. I don't know anything like that. But what I do know is that everyone was surprised about his death, because again, seemingly on the outside, you had this great guy, great dancer, great abilities on television, making money, and now he's gone. But again, I believe that he was a person of a certain age, younger, that especially black men. I can attest to this, as if you're sad or anything like this, it was always you need to buckle up and you'll be all right. That's it. And I would talk to nobody sometimes, and I would tell him, I was like, look, you need to see somebody, you need to get some help. And he would just straighten up. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm a man. I can handle this, which I understood. I understood what that is, because, often, especially men, this is what we have to do. And this is what we've been taught from being young.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Dr. Kimberly with somebody, my brain these days, about, the work we do with veterans and how much we've learned, that, 22 veterans an hour or a day are committing suicide. And part of the military ethos, some of the military ethos is don't ask for help.
Don't ask for help.
Don't ask for help. And so it's like, help is out there, folks. And if your inner strength is not enough today, reach out
and watch our videos.
What's that?
I said, and watch our videos on internet.
Watch our videos, but reach out and ask for help, because Well,
Dr. Kimberly, to your point now, also there are a lot more resources now. Your videos,
right.
You don't particularly have to go into an office anymore. If you're embarrassed about you can do private sessions at home. So that's
the VA is way more open to it, as opposed to just buck it up, soldier.
Oh no, I had my session today at 11 o'clock, from 11 to 12, right here in this gracious space. We did telehealth.
Was it buck it up, sailor?
I said to her how wonderful it is that when my husband died, who gets to have their primary care and their mental health person talk to them at the same time. Oh, he kind of popped out there for a second.
He'll be back.
There he is.
There he is.
I don't know what happened there, but
and I said, how many people can say that they have their primary care and their mental health person just hours after my husband's death? They both are talking to me, and they both counsel me to say, I think that if Gift of Life is asking you to do the donation, I think that you should do it. It'll help you in the long run. And it truly has. And we talked about that today.
Well, it's so good that the technology as well has made it so much more accessible than it was before. And there's a lot more professionals. And then, like I said, there's a lot more education behind it as well. So, there's, if you catch it early enough, if you know that, maybe this is something I need to start paying attention to, because part of the time is just recognizing what you're going through, especially a younger kid. Again, they don't have the language for it. They don't know what's wrong with them. They're like, I don't know what this is. So now with even, TikTok videos, they're giving, sometimes they're giving bad information, but a lot of times, sometimes they're giving some good information as well. So that's just how the internet works. There's good and bad, and it depends on what you take from it. But if you look for it, it's there for you. There's professionals on there that have taken to TikTok because they know that this is where the young kids are. So they're able to give that particular advice. And now these kids have a vocabulary and a way, a strategy to combat what they're feeling early, because it's very important, just like anything, any disease, is to detect it early and figure out what it is. Because sometimes it might be a diet change that
you may need. Sometimes it might be more exercise. Sometimes it might be just taking some time for yourself. Sometimes it might be medication. There is not one magic pill for everyone to deal with depression.
Because we know that self-care is not selfish.
It's not selfish, no, not at all. But it's also you also have to make sure you're doing the work, because it's not just going to go away. It's not just going to the doctor, giving you the pill, and like, okay, it's not working. That's not how it works. And as more of the research has come along in terms of, you know, and I just want to let everybody, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional at all, but in terms of microdosing, mushrooms, psychedelics, and they're starting to really research those things to see if there is a combination that can help veterans, people dealing with PTSD. Yeah, so
they have been developing different strains of cannabis in order to help with that. And there's been a test group. I'm not in a test group. I'm not in a test group. I can't smoke and drive. You know,
right.
I can't smoke and drive. So no.
But again, you know, that may work for some people, but don't think that you're just gonna smoke some weed and everything is gonna be. That's just not how it works.
Right.
So want everybody to be cautious in terms of doing their research, making sure they're applying what they, talking to a professional, and doing what they need to do. But that's why that's one of the things that I wanted people to take away from this movie as well. It's also a cautionary tale. If you don't deal with these particular things, ultimately, you're going to meet your demise. It's the sad truth. But with treatment and help, you can beat this. You can, and you can live with it.
I think that he just gave his closing words because it is 4:47, and we want to be respectful of your time because we know that you're a jet setter, and we told you 4:45. So,
well, real quick, what are you doing as it relates to the film, and how can we help get the word out?
So right now I'm still doing screenings for the film. I'm still collecting funds for the film as an independent filmmaker. Making the film is only one part of it. You have to market and promote it as well. So there is a GoFundMe. Please connect with me on my Facebook page. Nobody Was Here. TMNK Movie. Instagram. Nobody Was Here. TMNK. And Twitter at Was TMNK. Follow the page, find out the updates, come to the screenings when you hear about them, when they come to your city, tweet, TikTok, do whatever, scream, yell, let everybody know about it. And I'm trying to build the audience up for it. And I thank you guys for your time to help me build that audience.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. And thank you, Dr. Kimberly, for coming to the screening. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I can post my pictures now.
Oh, yeah, post everything.
I can post my pictures now. I hadn't posted pictures or said that I had gone, so I can do that now. And we definitely, Dave.
Simply gratitude. Thank you so much for taking the time, Rico. We wish you
well. In the movie, yeah. I look forward to showing
it. And keep letting us know how we can help. I might know where there's
the Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I might know where there's a 700-seat auditorium to film.
This might be. You know what? You're right.
Just down the hall.
I'm just saying.
Or even the big screen. We'll talk to Emily Lokes, our good friend at Celebration Cinema. Tommy Allen's going to want to be on this. We're going to put together. Dr. Kimberly.
I've already talked to Tommy.
In the Army, they're marching orders. What are they in the Navy?
It's still marching orders.
Swimming orders.
Yeah. So I already talked to Tommy about it, and I sent everything to him last week, and he was like, "Well, I'll wait for you guys' show so I can see what's going on." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I'm gonna send this over to him, and I want everybody to know that it will replay next week on GRTV, which is our community media center. So we can probably even maybe get in touch with them as well. So this will replay there, but you can watch the replay on YouTube at 100 Shades of Diversibility. And you can't miss it because it's got all this big purple as it's on the screen. And you'll see Dave and I's face rolling on the road. But yes, we are definitely going to get the word out. And I can post.
Let me ask you something. What did you take away from the film?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Number one, I wanted to know what you were going through. What my big question was, what were you going through when you shot this? Did it help you? You know, when you saw what he was experiencing with the depression. That was my one big takeaway. My second big takeaway was I gotta get my tissue. The love that he had for his son and how it really motivated him, that relationship. And when the mother, he was married to his mom, and she didn't understand him, the passion that he had for his artwork, the passion that he had for the relationship with his son and how his son was really his muse. And when she took that away, the importance of being married to the right person for what God has called you to do. It's important that you can't allow, if you know that you have this calling on your life, even if you know that I deal with mental illness, there is someone who can love you, not make it go away because they love you, but they can understand you. And they know how to help you when you get in those moods, you know, how to talk to you, how to make sure you get to counseling, how to make sure that you're okay and not just get frustrated and leave you in a corner to yourself. So it's making sure that you wait on that right person for you, and you'll know. And not just because he had, you know, mental illness, but the passion that he had for his artwork, and that she didn't share that with him, and that he was really teaching their son something, and that she couldn't value what he had to give him as a father. That was a major, major takeaway. And disappointed with his daughter that as much as she wanted a father, that once she became a mother and a parent, that she would have had more empathy for her father and said, wow, I understand this now. And as a parent, I can kind of help do something a little bit differently with my dad, for my dad, have a different type of expectation now that I am a parent. Ooh.
There's a lot. I mean, just like his paintings, there's a lot to take away from it.
And I loved how his fellow artists loved on him. I loved it. I love that we only hear about rivalry, but we don't hear about the camaraderie. And I said that earlier on, is that's, you see all these movies about it, you hear it in the news, but you never hear about the camaraderie and the fact that he was willing to give so much of himself to others to be able to teach them, even through his own struggles. I just wish that it was enough, because some people, they can do that when they're in their darkest point, if they go and help somebody else, it pulls them out of what they're in. But for him, the voice of the negativity from his family was greater than the love and the positiveness that he received from his friends in his community.
Thankfully, we have all of his artwork to continue his legacy in terms of what he wanted people to show, in terms of love, and in terms of his artistic creation. So I'm so grateful that, you know, we get to still see some of that art. That some of it's painful, A lot of it's joyful, but it's 100% him. So I'm so appreciative that we still have that artwork to 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 know that nobody was here.
And I think that's the part that I think is the most profound, because someone like him, everything he created could have been lost and gone. And the only thing we would have had is like, okay, this documentary, but does it really, where is it? Can we put our hands on it? That was nice. That was wonderful. But the fact that you can go back and see him, there's a part of him that's not out and doing the street art. There was the business side of him. And then you see all of this art, and then you have those that can attest to he was here.
Right.
He was here. We knew him. And to even see, I love the way you captured the people on the streets, how excited. Dave, when you see it, it's gonna be like, oh my gosh, he would just have a big, huge box and just rip off a section. People who recycle, you'll be okay, you know.
But that's what he did. He recycled. He used cardboard and made art with the pieces of ripped cardboard.
And he would just rip off, a piece of cardboard, and in a couple of seconds, whip up this thing, sign it, and just pass it out to people for nothing. So it's just to watch it. Just to watch it. It's one of those type of documentaries where you can immerse yourself in it and feel as if you're actually there on the streets of Miami.
And and part of what I wanted to do is make sure that people know it doesn't stop there at the end of my documentary. That's the great thing. You can go online, you can immerse yourself with his artwork. I want to go around to different museums around the world and show his artwork and show the film. So it just doesn't stop. Like, this isn't the end. He's trying to take him. Well, he's going to go into a legend status. So that's what this is. That's what this project is about.
Awesome.
But thank you guys for your time. I look forward to coming to Grand Rapids and showing the film.
Well,
we'll get you here in February. You'll love the weather.
That's okay. As long as I'm coming back to Miami, it's fine.
Do not lie to that man.
He might like snow.
I grew up on the East Coast, so I already know.
Exactly. Okay. Like he said, as long as he's heading back to Miami, he'll laugh at us when he gets on the plane.
Exactly.
We will warmly greet you and warmly say farewell.
Yes.
We look forward to that.
All right, guys.
I have your number. We can get in touch with you, and we'll continue the conversation.
All right, perfect. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rico. Thank you, Dr. Kimberly.
Oh,